Because of the following special program, Wonder Woman and the Incredible Hulk will not be presented this evening.
It's time to get all your Star Wars news in a single file. This is Making Tracks. Here are your hosts, Mark Newbold and Dave Tree.
That's not true. That's impossible.
You're listening to episode 5 of Making Tracks. I'm your co-host Mark Newbold, and joining me today, as always, in a hot and sunny basement somewhere in Fordingbridge. Dave, do your introduction. It's a tradition. Do your own introduction.
How can I actually give any form of introduction after saying, like, in a basement somewhere? Like, you know, you're conjuring, like, this picture of, like, you know, I mean, like, some door. Actually, I'd rather be in a basement. It's so hot in here. Oh, my word.
Are you melting?
But, yes, I am. But, hey, everyone. Welcome. Sorry, it's been a few delays. That's probably largely down to me. So, big apologies. But how you doing, Mark? How you doing? Tell me. Talk to me.
You want to know? Okay.
Yes.
Well, I tell you,
give me the lowdown.
Dedication to the cause is such that I haven't even got the fan on. So I'm kind of, I was going to say moist, but that gives the wrong connotations off. And so does damp.
Maybe.
So I'll just be honest and say I'm sweaty.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Fragrance. Thank God this isn't smell-o-vision. It's very warm here. I don't know what it's like down where you are, but certainly in the Midlands, it's really warm. What's the weather like with you? Is it sort of bog swamp hot?
Parts of the UK have had a little bit of rain over the last week. We haven't had any rain in over 7 weeks. Everything's dying.
That's so not a British thing to say, isn't it?
Yeah. I actually, I'm laughing. It's not actually funny because where I'm geographically located is in the forest, and it is getting to a point now where there is some serious concerns with, like, all the newborn livestock, like the donkeys and cows and ponies, that they are having to go to particular lengths to keep themselves nourished.
What do they do for that? Put water butts out for them, or what do they do?
It's illegal to actually feed the animals in the forest, and that's what I mean. That they're now having to, like, work out potential emergency plans. You can't just go up there and, like, leave water out, because you then get them dependent on human interaction, and you don't want them getting too familiar, because otherwise it increases road accidents and things like that. Yeah. And when you have a road traffic accident with a cow in particular, you're lucky to walk away, because they're just very top heavy, and the moment you take the legs out, you know, it will just completely annihilate the front of your car and roll over it and stuff like that. Yeah. It is a tricky situation, because you can interact with the animals, but you can't get them dependent on you. It would be nice to have a little bit of rain by now. But
Making Tracks, bringing you closer to nature. There you go.
I'm going to get some stick for this.
No, it's all good. It's all good. Public service announcements and all that. So in other news, obviously stepping across the other side of the ocean, and even the other side of America to San Diego on the West Coast. As we speak now, it's Friday. The hot news that came out last night, Thursday night, was that the Clone Wars is coming back, and it's hopefully going to get the wrap up and the finish that we never quite got back in 2013, 2014 when the show finished the first time. Fans have gone nuts. I think people are ready for it, and people seem excited by it. What are your thoughts on that, about Clone Wars coming back, hopefully to see itself to a proper conclusion?
I think it was announced a while back that there was going to be a Clone Wars anniversary panel at San Diego. And I remember sort of thinking, well, that's kind of odd that they're revisiting some. It's kind of cool. Absolutely, that is being acknowledged, but it's kind of odd that they're giving a slot for that at something at San Diego when you're talking about all your big Marvel and computer game tie-in movies, and you know, it's like that's quite a big thing to get in that scheduled slot. Never saw this coming, and I am so excited. It really is cool. And, like, literally, I was actually watching up last night, and I just had the pad going on loop on like YouTube and stuff like that, and it then came up, and I literally, like, stood there, like, staring at the screen, because for a brief second, because it was all like the helmets lined up, I was like thinking, so what, is this a fan thing or what? And I'm like standing there looking at it, and Chloe's like coming in and out, and then literally I'm like, oh my God. Wow, they're going back to it. Me personally, I've got a very privileged relationship with Clone Wars from the point of view that I have several friends that have worked on the toy line for it through like Hasbro, and the insight that they've given me into the production process of creating those characters as toys and things like that, and the thought process that goes into it, really made me appreciate Clone Wars a lot more. And I've always felt that with the Disney takeover, where they needed to kind of like put their plans in place and say, right, this is how we're going to do things, I've always felt that Clone Wars has never actually been properly acknowledged for its contribution as a whole. As a toy retailer, it is a generation's version of Star Wars.
Yeah.
You know, there are kids that don't remember, you know, they're too young for Revenge of the Sith to have been there, but they like jumped onto Clone Wars, and for a good sort of 5 years or so, they were into that big time. You know, I was out selling Clone Wars figures to the regular Star Wars figures until they've done the vintage version, vintage releases of Star Wars figures. There was an awful lot of unanswered questions. You've got further questions as a result of Rebels, with characters making a comeback, and even with things like Solo. What's happened? You know, how did we get from there to here? You know, there's, without kind of like a spoiler alert or anything like that, the sort of introduction of a character at the end of that film, it's like, well, how does he get to that point? When you last saw them in Clone Wars, they're being dragged off and saying, you know, I'm not done with you yet. How are we filling in these gaps? I don't know if we'll see that necessarily, but immediately it allows us to like talk about it and speculate in the way that Star Wars can do. And I think we've needed this over the last 2 months or so, where things have just gone completely bonkers.
Yes.
Now we can kind of like stop, you know, playing that scratched record and move on, and let's like get some healthy debate and some healthy speculation and excitement for things, rather than kind of like So it's a good play. I totally didn't see that coming. I'm very excited. Who knows where it can lead.
Agreed.
What about you though? Come on, ranting for 5 minutes.
Rant and ramble, it's fine. I've learned.
Give me a break, Mark.
I've learned lots of things about donkeys and deers today, so I'm happy. I think it was the smartest thing they could have done. I really do, because we knew they got the audio for it. They'd recorded up to like season 8. We know about all the arcs that never got made, you know, Crystal Crisis on Utapau and Son of Dathomir and all this, you know, that turned into a comic. But, you know, there was all the other things, and Mon Cala arc and all these different things that they talked about but never came to pass. I think the one that they mentioned was Siege of Mandalore, which I think is something that we'll see. I think at the moment it's going out on their new Disney streaming app, which doesn't launch till next year. So obviously they've given themselves some time, and they're talking of 12 episodes. But presumably if it goes down as well as I think it will go down, and the fans are going to get behind it. I know last night on Twitter, I actually put out a tweet on the Fan for the Tracks Twitter feed, basically saying how nice to go onto Twitter for the first time in forever, and everyone was excited. Everyone was
going, yay!
Totally, because none of, like you say, I never saw it coming. We hoped, but we didn't know. Filoni's reaction to it at the panel yesterday, you know, when they're praising him and saying what a great boss he is, and he was so bashful because, you know, it's kind of how he is. I think it's a really smart move, and I think with Resistance coming, stylistically, the two shows are very different, so that's a good thing. You know, change it up, mix it up. I think that's not a bad thing, especially with the progressions in CGI technology. You know, it's good to keep it moving and keep it changing. I think the two things will bounce off each other really nicely, because they're in different eras as well, and it gives them some potential for overlap. But more importantly than that, fans have wanted this for so long. We've had so long where it feels like maybe Lucasfilm and Disney were trying to second guess what we wanted by giving us what they didn't think we would see coming, if that makes sense. Not to say that they're not giving us what we want, but I think they felt that if they just gave us what we want, that's too obvious. This is something that was, 4/5 of the way done. I don't think the Clone Wars was going to go on forever, but it never got that proper conclusion, and it feels like now, even if we just get 12 episodes, who's going to gripe at only 12 episodes? You know, fantastic. It's 12 more than we thought we'd get. At least Filoni and co can wrap that up before they move on to the next thing. We've got live action coming next year as well, so there's a lot of stuff going on. Brilliant move. Given the current status that you alluded to, the current status of fandom being so up and down, brilliant move. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, it's like incredible news. It's so cool. It really is. And here's the funny thing with what's been going on and everything like that. All of a sudden, everybody loves the prequel trilogy again.
Yeah.
You know, so like, which is never bad in the first place. And the Clone Wars, literally, with anybody who kind of prequel bashes, you cannot say that about the Clone Wars. No. It is phenomenal. And that only came about because of the creation of that prequel trilogy and all the characters and came with it. You know, it is like the filling between the gaps. And if we could get that sort of thing again, through the other periods of time zones that have now been created, both with Galactic Civil War and then with what we've got possibly with Resistance and, going towards the sequel trilogy, then there's just so much scope for development here. It's just really, really cool. So
don't you find, Dave, that now in this current era, we're starting to get, when we look at it objectively, we're starting to get things that we were not promised, but things that we learnt about nearly 40 years ago. The scroll up of Star Wars is Rogue One. The Han and Chewie relationship that was alluded to really early back in the day, that all these little things that we learnt about Han and Chewie has just rolled out in Solo. The Clone Wars is mentioned in the opening pages of Alan Dean Foster's original Star Wars adaptation, and we're now going to get the 7th season, if you count the Lost Missions as a 6th. All of a sudden, these huge swathes of back history that we've talked about and thought about for years are actually physically here for us to watch, and it is really cool.
What a time to be a Star Wars fan. We had highs and lows. You've got movies coming out your ears. You've got spin-off movies coming. You've got Rebels, where that's kind of come to an end. You've got Clone Wars coming back. You've got Resistance in the near future. You've got the comics. You've got the novels. We're so spoiled. We really are. And I feel quite lucky to be part of it, especially through Stanford Tracks.
Whilst we're on the subject of Clone Wars, which is obviously harkening back to a previous era, we're going to step sideways to Solo, which is also harkening back to a previous era. We had a competition running on the site a couple of weeks ago, which would have been announced on the latest show, but we didn't get it out in time. This is the latest show. So now I'm going to announce the winner of the Art of Solo, a Star Wars story book, which we had running on the site for a little while. The winner is Gordon Elliott. Twitter handle is at clown with a K, KLOWN78. I'm assuming he's 40 this year. Don't know what makes me think that, but just something. The winner is Gordon Elliott. Gordon, if you're listening to the show, get in touch. It's the only way you're going to get your prize. That's the one stipulation, is you need to listen to the show to win your prize. So Gordon Elliott, please get in touch and we will send you that wonderful book, because it is a really awesome book. We have 3 guests on this show, and we're going to dig into the first one right away. Going back to the original trilogy, Return of the Jedi, one of the cast members of that was Mike Stevens. It was kind of retconned, wasn't it? I think it was a West End Games retcon, but it turns out, was playing General Cracken. He was the Rebel Commando character sitting on the full in the gun cockpit area. We had a chat with him at Empire Day, which was Dave Prowse's last ever event. This is Mike Stevens, General Cracken from Return of the Jedi.
Of working on Return of the Jedi?
Well, Dave Tomlin and Steve Lanning, that's the first and second assistant, cast me. Yeah. And I did so many films with them. Yeah. And I was so pleased. I knew nothing about Star Wars at all. And the first scene was as Wolf with the pig, where they talk about this brain thing. I had no idea what he was talking about. And we're just about to shoot it. So I've turned up, put the wardrobe on, turned up on the set to do the shoot, and there we are. I just don't know what we're doing. So anyway, I've been absolutely astounded since then how this has caught on and how big it's become. Yeah. I mean, it just blows your mind away. Yeah. The amount of people that turn up for this.
So this was you?
That's Wolf, yeah.
That is for anyone that's listening, obviously there's that classic shot of Luke with the gun, as you can see there, and it's the Klaatu. Is it Klaatu character?
It's the original Klaatu figure from the Return of the Jedi.
Leaning in with his hands up.
I think this is Wolf, isn't it?
Yeah.
This was shot by Lucas himself.
Yes.
There's only me and Lucas against the blue backdrop.
Yeah.
Which was to go in the movie, but didn't, because with the coloured guy, what's his name?
Lando Calrissian, Billy D. Williams.
I'm behind him doing all the nonsense, dressed as this character, Cracken, Colonel Cracken.
That's right.
And I suppose they must have thought, how can this guy be in 2 places at once? Yeah. But now I'm told that they put it on Blu-ray, and this has now gone back into the movie.
You're on the extras on the Blu-ray disc, and it's quite extensive.
Well, surprised me because I never knew any of this at all.
Yeah, because I think there's a lot of fans out there didn't even realise that this footage existed until it came out on the Blu-ray.
Yes.
And we're thinking how different this would have made the film feel. It would have broadened it out and made it a bigger rebellion. So it would have been quite interesting.
He's become quite a character. He keeps turning up in
the expanded universe.
All this stuff in America. I just can't believe it, you know.
Yeah.
No, but it was nice talking to George. Again, I said, what do you want me to do, George? And he said, well, do what you like. Yeah. He said, because I said, how do you mean, do what I like? He said, well, you do what you want to do. Yeah. He said, and the art department will put all the nonsense in afterwards. So.
I suppose the idea was that they were going to be like pick-up shots of somebody else other than the core characters doing something significant in the battle.
Well, you know what the process was at the time. You shot it against a blue background, and then you added it on afterwards.
Yeah.
Well, there's no need to do that today, is there? You've got digital that does all of it.
That's right.
And I suppose they've cleaned up a lot of stuff on this now, you know? So the problems they would have had then, and they were big problems, you haven't got it today.
No. And going back to when you were in Jabba's throne room, obviously you got to work a bit there with Mark Hamill. Did you work with Carrie Fisher and Harrison Ford?
Well, she's in the scene, isn't she?
She's in the scene by Jabba. Yep.
I tell you straight, I wasn't concentrating on what they were doing. I wanted my guy to come alive because I could see people doing other characters and they were just standing there.
And what you were doing was quite creepy, wasn't it? Like you're creeping up,
Well, I don't like to mention Doctor Who, but I played a character similar to this called the Sea Monsters with John Pertwee. And they made such a big deal of this character. We shot it on the Isle of Wight. I remember walking into a minefield and being blown up. And this guy really works if he's moving, if he's physically doing something. So to be threatening, I thought, well, it's only little moves, but it makes all that difference, you know, to it. And when you see it now, it works. It really works.
Yeah. He's certainly one of the most memorable characters from the assembly in Jabba's palace.
That image especially, though, was one of the first sort of not pre-production, but before the film came out, that picture was knocking around.
It did the rounds, didn't it?
It really did,
So that was on my mind. I wasn't thinking about what they were doing or what Jabba was doing. I was like, what I'm doing.
But that's really professional to do, isn't it? Because you're thinking, I want to stand out in this role. I want people to see me, and it worked. Because that action figure became one of the most popular ones in that first line of Jedi films, didn't it?
Classic.
Classic, yeah.
Sorry.
But I wanted to impress Dave Tomlin, who was the first assistant. Dave Tomlin did, as you know, Gandhi, A Bridge Too Far. He was a director in his own right anyway.
He was a character,
I met him on
Space 1999.
And Dave would stand no nonsense. You know, you had to know what you were doing. So if you wanted to work on any of those sort of films, and they were casting, remember, you needed to put some input.
You couldn't fudge it.
You really had to make something of what you were doing. And that got me such a lot of work.
Fantastic.
So I've had 54 years in the business, and I've worked on so much television and stuff now. I mean, even I can't remember a lot.
Anything significant that...
Well, I started on Doctor Who with William Hartnell. And then went on through to a couple of those. I did all the Pertwees. I came out of that and then did... oh Christ! I mean, I go back to Gideon's Way and Roger Moore and the Saint. Oh, they were happy days. I can't tell you. MGM was still there in Borehamwood, and
so did you get to work with any of the other actors that were in Star Wars films in other projects like Jeremy Bulloch or something like that?
If I did, I mean, I'm not sure, you know. I mean, I knew everybody at one time. Don't seem to know too many people these days because I'm an old man. You know. But think about it. MGM was open. I was doing Where the Spies Are with David Niven. George Peppard come over for a picture. Do you remember that big war picture about the V2 rockets?
Yes.
Yeah, you must remember that. What else was done there? Oh my goodness gracious! I met Lee Marvin there with Ernie Borgnine. That was what? What was that called? Do you remember the film?
Was that Firefox?
No. The Dirty Dozen.
Oh, wow, yeah.
That was made there.
Yeah.
They're in Chinese. Oh, Christ, yeah. Yeah, in fact, I hadn't seen Ernie for 18 years, and he turned up at Pinewood one day. I was doing, what was we doing? We were doing Supergirl, and I see him coming towards me with standing talking like now.
You drop all these film titles, you're like, it doesn't matter.
It was Ernie Borgnine, you know. And he came up and he recognised me straight away.
Yeah.
Jesus, fella, how are you? So I couldn't believe it. Just couldn't believe it. He remembered it all that time. Yeah.
Is that the way of the world, though, with actors? And I'm sure it is, where you can work on a project in your 20s and you're not
American
super 40 years.
actors are really super because the public pay their wages and they know it. My experience of some English actors, they're royalty.
Yeah.
Right.
And that really gets up my nose.
Yeah.
Because ordinary people really do pay. They're the people who see you. They're the people who make you famous.
Respect your public.
And they respect you. And I think the Americans have got the right idea. Every time, without a doubt. Hello, fella, you know, how are you? Pleased to meet you and all that. Who are you? Where'd you come from? You don't get that with an English actor.
Did you ever film in the States? I mean, or was it work predominantly in the UK?
Here in Europe.
Yeah.
I mean, I screen tested for Bond in Play Dirty with Michael Caine, Harry Andrews in Almeria. No, I just can't remember it.
You've had a good career then. You've had a good career.
54.
Yeah. But are you still surprised that these two guys are still ever present?
Yeah. And Doctor Who.
Yeah.
I mean, people come up and say, you know, you were a eunuch, Arthur. I said, for Christ's sake, I was put on there to stunt, you know, play the monsters.
Because you could have never imagined that the interest in this would still be going 35 years later, or in...
And I don't think anybody else did either.
No.
I mean, you think about the franchise on this, it's just incredible.
Oh, it's bigger than ever.
If some of us here, like Doctor Who, for instance, would have realised that the franchise... Going back to William Hartnell, is going to take off the way it did.
He kept all his scripts. He kept all his. Yeah.
Did you catch this programme this week with what's his name, the scientist, the guy who's always got a smile on his face? He was talking about Doctor Who this week.
Brian Cox.
Yeah. Good boy.
See, I knew you'd get involved, Carl. Well done.
And I was absolutely enthralled by it. You know. I didn't realise that everything that Doctor Who does is technically feasible, or it's been done, or it's... You think about it. It's been going for 50 years.
Yeah.
Incredible.
That's brilliant.
It was a heck of a show. It was proper old school, early days, Empire Day sort of vibe in like I was going to say a bingo hall. It wasn't a bingo hall. It was like a like a sports hall. So it was a really cool day. We've mentioned San Diego Comic-Con. What have you seen? I mean, bearing in mind it's Friday as we speak. There's still a couple of days of the show to go, but we had the Clone Wars announcement, which was amazing. Of the stuff that you've seen from the show, be it products that are coming out, licensed stuff, fan stuff, whatever it might be, what have you seen from the show so far that's really caught your interest?
I'm always taken with the presentation and display of stuff, because someone's gone to a huge great deal of effort to like create something for other people to enjoy, and then from this Hasbro have created, now I don't know these things, but you sure as hell do, the monorail gravity train thing from Solo.
The Conveyex.
Conveyex trademark. The Conveyex, Hasbro created a 6-inch diorama for their Black Series releases from Solo that featured that going from left to right, and you had like all the range troopers on there, Han and Chewie and Beckett. Just off to the side, you can see other characters that may not have been necessarily associated with that scene, but they're in there like doing like a cameo. Now, to me, that is so cool. Someone's gone to the effort of like literally scratch building that. And as a toy retailer and also as a fan of like toy history, you really don't see much in the way of toy displays and product placement anymore. It literally is like a lost art, because you just don't see those things anymore. For someone to like make something that's unique to that event, I think is great. And it really does help sell the toys and promote the concepts of, we might not necessarily have made this as a physical product, you know, because some people look at this and go, oh, well, you know, we didn't get that as a toy. It's like, that doesn't matter. Going back to like when you were a nipper, you literally made up stuff with your own imagination. Your shoe boxes became like your Action Man bunk beds. Your egg boxes became all sorts, canisters or whatever.
Pizza attitude, isn't it?
Toilet rolls were like gold dust. It's all that sort of thing. So, when nothing's stopping you from like actually making that yourself. But I really, really enjoy those, because all of the product releases and stuff like that, as a retailer, you kind of see some of it like long before, and you see it afterwards, and then like within a few months, it'll be all on the shelves anyway. So I don't really necessarily get excited by that. I really like the more creative things that you're not, that they've done just for that event, be it like a standee or exhibition graphics or in this sense like a whole model 3D display. So I love that. What's been catching your eye, Mark?
Funny enough, and I'm not a collector of the sort of the high-end stuff, but the sideshow stuff at the moment is really, really catching my eye. I mean, we're covering a lot of it on the site.
That layer. That's
the one. That Bespin layer looks phenomenal, and I would normally wouldn't consider getting anything like that. I've got to be honest, I'm really tempted by that. Really tempted. So that's the one that's jumped out at me. But I mean, the Maul bust looks cool. The Mythos Boba Fett looks cool. There's a lot of really neat looking stuff from Sideshow. So as I say, it's not something I normally get, but they look fantastic. You mentioned Hasbro, their products as well. The new range, I love the vintage collection packaging. Just really works for all of them. It uniformly looks good. And even down to the exclusives, the Afra, BT and 000 pack. That looks amazing as well, in that old vintage style packaging. So I think Hasbro, it feels like they've turned a corner of sorts, and that what's coming out now has got that little, it's just notched up a little bit. Because I think the vintage collection adds a lot of class. I just think it looks awesome. And we've got Martin Keeler on the team as a 6-inch collector, and I know he's really enjoying the stuff that's coming out. So their stuff is fantastic. But as I say, it's just getting into the swing of it now. I don't know whether we'll have seen, we'll know by the time this episode's out, but I don't know whether we'll have seen any Resistance footage. I'm not expecting any more Star Wars movie news, but you never know, because it's a fast-moving sort of landscape at the moment. We'll talk about it in more length in the next episode. So let's move on to our second guest. Our second guest is Sandeep Mohan. Now, you'll know Sandeep. He was a First Order trooper in The Force Awakens. He was one of a pair of troopers who were known as the Nope Troopers. So that sequence when Kylo loses it after Rey escapes and Kylo walks in the room, she's not there, and he just trashes the room. You see two troopers walk around the corner, turn tail and walk back out. Sandeep's one of those guys. So at Granite City Comic Con, Martin travelled up, met up with Brian, and those guys did the show. This time it's Martin sitting down with Sandeep Mohan to talk about his Star Wars experience.
Hello, it's Martin here from Fantha Tracks, and we're here with Sandeep Mohan, who most of you will know as one of the Nope Troopers, I believe, from The Force Awakens, but you've done plenty of other things as well.
A few bits and pieces of those, yeah.
Excellent. So we're here to have a quick chat today here at Granite City Comic Con. So I'm going to start off with, tell us about all the roles you've had in the Star Wars films.
It's strange. I'll a bit backtracking now. I was a big fan before I even got involved in this project, but I basically got an inkling from an agent to say they're filming Star Wars, and I thought, this is a childhood dream for me to come true if I can get in. So I pleaded with her. I said, look, it's one of those things I will do for free. And she said, look, I can, from her point of view, get you to the audition, and then the rest is down to you. Now, like everyone else, I thought Stormtrooper sounds very straightforward. Show your stature, do a few moves, and hopefully you've got an opportunity. I was so wrong. I think it's probably one of the toughest processes I've been through, and some of the guys went through, because we didn't expect the military training, boot camp, but literally it was full on from day one. And I think it was so stringent because rumour has it 900 applied, 90 went for the auditions. And then we were lucky enough, the 10 of us got picked. But everything from choreography, the American choreographers were here, the British military guys were testing you. But we had to go through a number of drills on camera so that, to stand a chance to be in it. And I was lucky enough to be picked. But it's... Then, you've been picked. I was tired before we even started. So, you can imagine 5 nights, I think, was the process on The Force Awakens, where it was Jakku Village. So everything was in Jakku, fires going, and there was a buzz about the place. And I knew one other trooper, didn't know any of the other 8. So I was looking around thinking, Christ, right, this is it, we're just about to do this. And everything was pretty relaxed, but there was a buzz about the situation. And all of a sudden, there's someone walking towards me. And I'm thinking, who is this person? And it was J.J. Abrams.
Wow.
And I think we had a bit of a chat just before we did the scene with Max von Sydow. We had a bit of a chat, and he said, well, what's your name? And I said, my name is Sandy, because ever since I was so high, my nickname's been Sandy.
Right.
So he looked at me in a strange manner, and Sandy, and he walked off. I thought, this is the shortest discussion. This could be the end of my career as far as Star Wars is concerned. And I went, what was that? Oh God, that's it. I thought, and he came back and said, no, your name is Sandeep, and I'll call you Sandeep. Yeah. And talked about what I've done before, and we're more weary about what's going on set, thinking I'm holding everything back. What's going on here? But I think that bit of communication probably helped me with other parts of it in the film. But I got to play a stormtrooper officer, squad leader, captain, stormtrooper, and obviously now, as far as the fans are concerned, which is great, the Nope scene, which I'm eternally grateful to J.J. Abrams. But so I got to play a number of characters within the film, which that's awesome, pleasure.
Well, that leads nicely into. So, was the Nope scene something that had been pre-scripted, or was it something that sort of happened organically? Or?
I don't think it was pre-scripted, because I think the word I had back is basically on the day of the shoot, there's very few of us on set. Because my understanding was that they were doing, Daniel Craig had done his bit.
Yeah.
So there's very few people doing, actually on set. But it's only maybe 4 troopers. But they came in and said, right, Sandy, David, there's been an idea. And I thought, what have we done now? And it was all to do with Kylo Ren is going ballistic, and there's 2 troopers walking down the corridor. When I first heard it, I thought, this sounds like a bit of a comedic scene. But I think the intention was, in previous films, as you can imagine, and people throw this at me all the time, troopers can't shoot straight, they die too easily. Someone said to me yesterday, you haven't got a brain cell between you. Thank you so much for saying that to me. And this is a bit, because the film is a little bit rebellious, this was a scene that I thought this would be ideal, but we did that scene about 15 times in different elements, so a bit more comedic, not comedic. And Carrie Fisher's first time on Carrie Fisher, she actually watched us do the scene.
Right.
So it was, and we then thought, is this going to remain in the movie? Is it something they've just done we're going to take out? So obviously went to see it on the big screen with my family, particularly my daughters. It was everyone erupted, and I was so happy and eternally grateful that was kept in the movie. So.
Oh, well, it's a classic scene, as you say, everyone knows it.
And again, it wasn't, okay, we didn't call ourselves the Nope Troopers. We just took it, but David Santana, a really good friend of mine, the other Nope, but it was, we literally were at a convention, and fans said, you're the Nopes. And I said, there's a nice ring to that. We should probably, I haven't even, there's no, we should put a stamp of authority on that.
Absolutely, yeah.
There's no copyright on that at the moment. That reminds me, but it was like, and literally someone started a web page for us on Facebook, and it just went the way.
Takes from that. And of course, David's now your partner in crime, and
yes.
It's a special occasion when the two of you get together.
You know something, I get on, we've got a big age gap. He's a lot younger than me, he's got a lot more energy than I do, and I'm a little bit more, I've done it, probably not done all of it, but seen it to some degree, but we match each other very, very well. Not only that, he's got such a big heart, and I've always got time for him, but we don't do a lot of shows together. We did one recently in Spain. It was great to see him again, and we've got another 1 or 2 planned in the UK this year. But fingers crossed we'll do more in the future. So.
Excellent. Okay. So moving on then from The Force Awakens, you're in Rogue One as well.
Yeah.
Now, Gareth has a very different style of directing, I understand.
Yes.
So what were the differences between that?
I think I found, because I think Force Awakens is probably a little bit more pertinent, because there was a personal journey involved in it. And there was 10 of us who really bonded. You can imagine, most of us didn't know each other. We've not seen each other in the worst states, in the best scenarios, and so we got to know each other very, very well. And they ring me, I ring them. There's a camaraderie there that no one can take, and I think that's the biggest thing I take from Force Awakens. So, and JJ is quite hands-on. and he's a visionary, which I've never seen a director work that way before. He can see things that others can't, and I used to look at him thinking, what's he thinking now? He wants to do it this way, he wants to do it that way. But when you look at the final editing, he's got it spot on in terms of the general masses. I know some die-hard fans didn't particularly enjoy it as much as they wanted to. Others absolutely loved it. But in the main, most people really enjoyed the film. Rogue One, it's a spin-off. So it's a one-off movie. The director was somewhat different because, again, everyone's got their own style, but they are very good at what they do. But this was quite direct. You know what we were doing. There was no messing around as such. There was not, let's try this and let's try that. It was like, right, that's what we want to do. Let's just do it. So it's a different form of directing. Having said that, they're really good directors. Yeah. And also, if truth really be known, the so-called uniform we had to wear for Rogue One is a little bit more comfortable. First order uniform, the costume we wore for Force Awakens. So, yeah.
Well, I can understand why that's an advantage.
Just chafing, chafing, and that's the end of that. So.
Okay, so what's been your favourite experience of working on Star Wars?
I think as a small boy growing up, and showing my age now, but 1977, like everyone, just blew our minds to watch the big screen. This movie that. When they were filming it, they really didn't know how it was going to go. You've heard in terms of financially strapped, they did the best they could. And when you speak to most of the actors, the jobbing actors, had a bit of money, paid some rent and the mortgage and all the rest of it, and that's what it was. So to me, it absolutely blew my mind to think what life on other planets, the way this has been portrayed. So it's magical. Yeah. So and. I'm a small boy at heart, so to come full circle, say I'm now going to be my small contribution to this magical experience was a dream come true because I was trying to explain to people yesterday, a huge fan myself. So you want to see a good movie, you want to see it made well, edited well, everything around it. So yeah, for me, double whammy. Big fan, and then being part of it, dream come true films.
That makes a lot of sense. We were lucky enough to see Solo at Pinewood on Thursday night, was it, or Thursday morning? And we had a couple of the guys who worked in the creature effects with us, and I got a lovely message from one of them afterwards saying it's so much nicer watching these films with fans, fantastic, rather than it being a work trip. Right. so and you can tell those that it's a job versus I can't believe I'm here, this is brilliant, I want to make it the best. So it makes a lot of sense. Okay, so very quickly, so you also worked on Harry Potter, which a lot of people will be interested in. Sure. So what's the difference about working, because they're both massive franchises?
And I unfortunately got involved very, very late because Harry Potter, there were opportunities I got to do a lot more. Yeah. But you're working on other projects, when you're also working, whether it be business or full-time, it's somewhat difficult trying to mix-match. Yeah. And with these films, it's very much so that 6 months of whatever you leave free. Yeah. Because they change things around all the time. Just give an example, Max von Sydow, when we did the scene in Force Awakens, he called him one night, didn't happen. He called the next night, didn't happen. I think it was the fourth night, finally we filmed. So it's a case of things get changed all the time. And so you have to leave time aside. So with The Force Awakens, I did nothing. I just said the diary's now empty. Call me whenever you want to call me.
My life's on pause
until this finishes. Yeah. And it is very different. But come back to Harry Potter, it's kids loved it. I love it. But just to be a part of it, I'm a Death Eater. So just to be a part of that it was a cold night running through hills. Wasn't probably the most enjoyable experience I've ever had, but it's an iconic movie, and the way it's been portrayed, and also Ray Fiennes, absolute genius in terms of what he does. We'll be talking quite happily at one moment, and then when he turns it on, wow! Even I was scared, thinking, "Oh my God, I don't want to get the wrong side of him." that's for sure. So
you got Kylo, you had Kylo Ren and Voldemort.
Sure. That's all the bad guys. Yeah, that says something about where I'm going with it.
Okay, so last but not least, what advice would you give anyone who wants to join the industry and do? It's like anything in life. I think it is a tough industry, very, very hard industry. You could be, without putting it down on things, you could be the most talented person, and I know some very talented actors, but if you are not connected, or if your face is not known, it's very hard to break the mould. What I would say is, if it's your passion and your dream to pursue a career in acting,
there's a number of facets to what we do, behind the scenes and front of the scene, whatever you like to do. Follow that dream come true. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But you don't want to reach to age of 60, 65 thinking, I could have done that, should have done that. Well, maybe that shouldn't come into play. Just go for it. If it works, brilliant. If it doesn't, have a good crack at it. Follow your dreams.
Brilliant. In which case, thank you very much.
I'll see you again.
What do you think it would be like being a guy or a girl in the new movies, in the new sequel trilogy, given that the films come out much more frequently or far more frequently than they used to? Do you think it's a better experience in that those guys may get to be in more films, or do you think it's not such a cool experience and that the exclusivity kind of isn't there that it was in the original trilogies, rather? Not that you'd ever say no to getting a role in a Star Wars film, but do you think it's kind of cooler to be in the old stuff or cooler to be in the new stuff?
That is a really good question, because hand on heart, I prefer the old style design better. So I think it's way cooler to like be a stormtrooper. It'd be even cooler if you could be a biker scout. But if you're a first order stormtrooper, then you're probably getting more interaction within that, because I think if you look at the old trilogy, no, I suppose you're talking about like with the new films, aren't you? Like the standalones and stuff like that.
A bit of everything, yeah.
No, I'd go for the old then. But if you could be a scout trooper, even better. That is just, to me, one of the coolest designs of any trooper, period, because it is just so cool and functional and stuff like that, and it makes sense, with the exception of like the backpack bit, you know, because if you fell off your speeder bike, you know, and you landed on your back, that would really hurt. The rest of it is dead cool. Or an AT-AT driver, but they kind of just sit there, don't they? They don't really do much.
Don't you think though that one of the cool things, specifically Solo and Rogue One, is that, you know, all the way through the original trilogy, we had stormtroopers, we had sandtroopers that just had an orange shoulder, we had snowtroopers, we had biker scouts, we had the AT-AT driver, the AT-ST driver was basically a guy in a helmet. So it was fairly limited, TIE fighter pilots, it was fairly limited on the armour in the original trilogy. Then the prequel trilogy comes out and you've got every colour under the sun of different sort of armours. They changed it up between episodes 2 and 3, lots more armoured figures in those. But now you've got Rogue One, you've added Tank Trooper, your Death Trooper in Solo, You've added your Mimban Trooper, you've added your Range Trooper, all the other troopers that have gone into it. You know, you've got a lot more Imperial armoured characters. But don't you think they've done a really good job of making it feel like it fits in with the battalions that went before?
Oh, yeah. Going back to your point of like every trooper of every rank and background from the prequel side of things, where I alluded to earlier about having a little bit of an insight into the toy production process, I can say that a lot of that in the prequel era was heavily influenced through the toy licenses to say, you don't just have your clone trooper, you have your clone trooper sergeant, your lieutenant, your captain, commander, and then we'll have this version and that version and that version. That wasn't necessarily a Lucasfilm-led direction. They had certain things that they were designing, you know, and making concepts for, but where they really rinsed it and really maximized it, that was definitely led by the toy companies, and that then got pushed back into and created, you know, in some cases these things didn't even appear on screen, but then in other cases they then took that on board and then developed it, certainly within like the comics, novels and cartoons and stuff like that. So you're absolutely right. And then to like where they've kind of like brought that across to this into this new age, are they just called Shore Troopers? Or do they actually have a proper name?
Well, they're either called Shore Troopers or Scarif Troopers. They're my favourite design of the new ones by a mile. Yeah. I think they look gorgeous.
That's what I was just about to come to, because they're very different from everything else. And to me, they're a bit like more of a Mad Max trooper, because they don't really conform to the actual uniform of like the Imperial Army that you see there. You know, there's very, very, very specific. In terms of like an elite troop that's supposed to be guarding their...
They found you, Dave.
They're on to me. To be an elite troop that is stationed where they have all like their data records and stuff like that, they're kind of like a bit worn and rough around the edges.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily buy that story, because if you look at how they are, again, that wouldn't be like practical to what their position is. But I do think that they are an awesome design. I'd love to see more of them. I'd like to see them. Don't keep that just to a Scarif Trooper. Let's get those guys in lots of other things as well, because they're really cool. But like the Tank Trooper, from the hover tank, the Minbam troopers,
the mud troopers,
or mud troopers as they're called, and then the range troopers. They kind of all have elements that tie back to the original trilogy.
Yeah.
So you got that signpost to anchor it and make it familiar, and then they've got, even between themselves, tie-ins from that design to the other new designs in other films. So like the Range Trooper's helmet is very similar to the Scarif Trooper and so on and so forth. I think what they're doing is very, very clever. However, I don't think that you need to always have something new, although it does help with selling a product and a brand and stuff like that. But it would be cool to like kind of bring back some of those old elements. So like in Solo, for example, where you had the patrol trooper on Corellia, also the fastest police officer on the planet, because the moment that speeder went by, his reaction time from seeing that and starting the chase was like 2 seconds.
You were saying bolt quick, wasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, he was ready to go. So, like, I'm sorry he kind of had a bumpy... But had he been wearing that Scout Trooper armor where I said he fell off, I mean, he wouldn't be getting up. That would be it for him. He'd have a broken spine and all sorts, Stormtrooper lives matter.
They do.
Let's start that on Twitter.
There's a bumpy sticker. Well, the guy that was arguably in charge of all these different sorts of armor and troopers would be Grand Moff Tarkin. At Star Wars Fan Fun Day, Guy Henry was there. I managed to sit down with him for about 4 minutes. It was very quick because he was very busy, and had a quick chat with him about his Star Wars experience and other stuff. But here's me having a quick chat with Guy Henry. So we're here at Star Wars Fan Fun Day. The weather's been lovely. Burnley football pitch is outside the window. How have you enjoyed your day?
I have had a fantastic time. I arrived yesterday evening from London. Due to a shortage of train crew, they didn't run any services from Halifax to Burnley, so Paul Dunn, who's one of the organisers of this event, he came and picked me up in his luxurious motor car, and we had a beautiful trip through Hebden Bridge.
Right.
And Todd Morden. I was slightly tense in Hebden Bridge because I was dumped by somebody there years ago. So, memories don't leave like people do, as they say. But I was very brave. I didn't cry. I did at the time, but not now. We had a lovely supper, fundraising dinner last night, at which I drank far too much wine of every colour.
You were bidding on a lot of things in the auction.
I was only bidding to get the price up, and unfortunately I kept waving my arms about saying, lift the photograph, lift the poster higher, and they kept saying, oh good, 160. They thought I was bidding. Anyway, so I've ended up with various posters, but there you go, all in a good cause. Yeah. No, it's lovely, and the people are very, very... the people, I say, in a rather grand way. The people are very lovely. They are. They're really,
so you
really
today because obviously it's one of those shows where folks can just come up and have a chat, get an autograph, have a picture. Not all shows are like that. It's quite unique in that respect. Have you enjoyed the interaction with people?
Well, I always like to have a chat, if possible, because I was not a Star Wars fan before I got involved in it, and what I've come to realise, even more than Harry Potter, is the passion that the fans have for the shows, the films, and the world of it, and that's a pleasure to be a part of, really. Feel very fortunate.
You've enjoyed learning about that and kind of getting into it?
I have, although I still get a bit confused about who's supposed to be dressed as what, because I'm by no means an expert, but also at the bigger comic cons where people come from all sorts of films I've never heard of, that's very confusing for an old fart like me. I don't know who anybody is.
We get that a lot. We see a lot of the manga stuff, the Japanese
stuff,
and it looks amazing. They've spent hours building a costume. No idea what it is. So it's not just you.
No, and they all look. They tend. The one common feature is that they all look very hot and very uncomfortable. Yes. I think designing the costume seemed like a good idea at the time, but it's about 27 degrees here in Burnley today, and they all look bloody hot.
I know, we've got a friend of ours walking around as a porg, like a big furry.
Yes. I had my photo with him earlier.
Rather him than me.
Yeah.
So have you got any more events lined up for the year?
I'm Folkestone next weekend, and then I'm having a lie down, and I think I've just agreed to do Wales Comic Con in December, beginning of December.
So you enjoy this as a nice diversion? Obviously acting is your full-time thing, but you enjoy this as a nice diversion, nice weekend away?
I do, I really do, yeah. And I was supposed to be at my I could have been rather at one of my best friend's 50th birthday party in Sussex this weekend, but I won't tell him this, of course, but I think I've enjoyed this more.
That's brilliant. Thanks for your time.
You're welcome.
We are running the Star Wars Fandom Zone at London Film and Comic Con, brought to you by Fantatrax. We're very lucky to have been asked to be a part of this. Yeah, there's loads of guests. Ray Park's there, Peter Mayhew's there, Jeremy Bullock's there, about 30 Star Wars guests, loads of folks there. Fantatrax has a table, so we're still in the process of figuring out exactly what we're going to be doing on the table. Talk to folks about fandom and about Star Wars and share the news and message of Fantatrax. We do everything but wear backpacks and knock on people's doors. We just want people to know about Fantatrax and where we are.
No, we do that as well.
We probably will in time. So we've got London Film and Comic Con coming up 26th to 29th, and then the following weekend, 4th and 5th of August at Fanta Day and Farthest From. It's going to be awesome. You will find us all there wearing our gold and silver shirts. If anything goes wrong, it wasn't us.
In terms of what you're saying, what we're figuring out, how can you say that when we turned up to Burnley and we rocked that place with all the stuff that we got there? If you guys managed to come to Burnley, expect to see something just as chaotic at the Olympia.
We do chaotic well, don't we?
Matt has agreed to be the Porg for the show as well, which
the whole show.
The whole show. Well done, Matt Booker.
Thanks, Matt.
I'm very proud of you. For a moment, I was actually kind of worried that I might end up having to do something like that. The fact that you've stepped up to the mark, that is just phenomenal. And from the bottom of my heart, I thank you for doing that. So well done, Matt.
Hello, I'm Warwick Davis, and you're listening to Fantatrax.
So that's it for episode 5 of Making Tracks. Dave, anything you want to say? Where can people find you apart from your basement?
I'm not in the basement.
It's a mental image that I just can't wash out.
Oh, God. If this is the first time you've been listening, or this is the first time that you've managed to get to the end of an episode, congratulations, you're a winner. I run a small toy shop called All the Cool Stuff, and you can find us in Hampshire. You can join me online on Facebook at All the Cool Stuff. We also run a show called Fantha Days and Farthest From, which is just coming up. It's only 2 weeks away on the 4th and 5th of August. Come down to Fordingbridge for Saturday, the 4th of August for Fantha Days, and you'll be able to get to meet a lot of the other Fantatrax team. It is our show that we run. We'll have lots of cool, exciting activities and that going on. And then on the Sunday is Farthest From, which is a vintage toy collector show. So it's all about the stuff from the 70s and 80s, which is a great deal of fun. So you can find me there, and you can also find us on YouTube as well under Fantatrax. We put out, when I say we, Martin Keeler has been doing an amazing job getting content out every Wednesday and Saturday. If you don't already, please subscribe. We're doing great. We're just bubbling under the sort of 500 mark at the moment. So as a result of this episode, if the 10 million of you that are listening can all sign up, then that would be great. That would make Martin's day. We do some great content on there and additional stuff that you don't necessarily find on the main website or other sort of social media platforms, particularly product reviews and things like that. So you can find us there. How about yourself, Mark? Where can I find? I mean, you're everywhere. Fantatrackers are everywhere. But where can I find you, Mark?
You can find me on Twitter at prefect_timing, but you'll mostly find me at Fantatrax. And the cool thing, as we said before about Fantatrax, is that we're just at Fantatrax everywhere. So on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, and on YouTube, we're at Fantatrax. So that's nice and easy. The site's ticking over very nicely. Loads of content going on at the moment, obviously with San Diego as we speak, and all the wonderful Clone Wars news. So that's all buzzing like crazy. Just to let people know, we've got another episode out the following Tuesday. So we're doing 2 episodes in a row because we're just trying to play catch up, aren't we? It'll be our pre-Farthest From and Fanta Day show. Dave, say goodbye to the door in public.
Goodbye, everyone. If I never see you again, you know why.
And we will be back with episode 6 of Making Tracks. Thank you all. Can we just say this episode is dedicated to Matt Booker. So on that note, before he can phone us up and take it back,
he won't listen.
Yeah, I know he won't listen.